Sean was incredible last hour as the hero seized the reward. I am Rashmi Airan, and I am going to take you into the road back. It's June 16th, 2015. I'm wearing a black suit. It's a hot summer Tuesday morning. I walk into a large federal courtroom in downtown Miami. The courtroom is packed. There are people filling the rows behind me. I'm sitting and I'm waiting for the judge. I've been practicing law for 15 years. The judge finally stands up and reads the judgment. He sentences me to a year in prison. I collapse on the ground, hysterical crying and shaking uncontrollably, thinking, what's going to happen to my kids? Yeah, I'm an ex-felon. And I know I don't fit the mold. Handcuffs, shackles with a waist chain, paper clothing, rubber shoes, transported in armored vans, all of it. How did this little Indian girl, who was a complete nerd, who never colored outside the lines, end up in a federal prison? My parents immigrated from India to achieve the American dream, and I was the perfect girl, right? I never swayed from that straight and narrow path. I graduated from high school, went on to UNC Chapel Hill, graduated with highest honors, and spent some time on Wall Street. And I ended up at Columbia Law School, where I also ended up graduating with honors. And I was practicing law. And by all accounts, I had it figured out. I'm an achiever. And all of my self-worth was rooted in that, in the awards that I won, in the grades that I got, eventually in who my clients were and how much money I was making. And now I'm sentenced to federal prison. By all accounts, I have failed. But I know, as I have gone through my hero's journey, that that is not the end. I have redefined what success means to me. And you, as the hero meeting professional, have gone through overwhelming challenges, an exhausting amount of stress, as you have navigated conflicts, crisis, adversities, and lots of ups and lots of downs on this journey. You've had challenges that have brought you down to your knees. And now here you are on the road back, and you have learned lessons. You can wrap your arms around the unexpected relationships that you've made, the collaborations you couldn't have even known you would end up in because of these challenges. You've learned something new about yourself in this road back. You have allies that maybe used to be adversaries. On the road back, we learn the power of our journey. We have awareness of that power, and then we can choose. It's a gift to continually grow. I was an Ivy League educated attorney, and I ended up in prison. But that's not the end of my story. When I was in prison, I read a lot. I taught math. That was my job after I was the trash girl. And I got out of prison, and I just wanted to be in service of others to help them through my story. I did a ton of research, trying to figure out, like, what's my next step? How do I go on this road back after I have seized the reward? And then my father told me a story. As it turns out, on the day that he was born, my grandfather, Banarsi Das Saraf, in Hindi we say Dadaji, was sitting in a jail cell with Gandhi. You see, my grandfather was a freedom fighter in the Quit India movement against the British. So he had this pattern. The British, of course, would put these revolutionaries into jail where the conditions were horrible. My grandfather would eventually get out. He would go home and eat with his 12 children, and then he would go back out and fight the British. Because you see, he didn't know if India would gain independence, but he was fighting for what he believed was the right thing to do. Eventually, of course, India does gain independence. By this time, then my father is 12. And by this age, my dad has read Gandhi's autobiography. And my grandfather was really ill by this time. And so on a particular day, my dad decides he's going to spend time with his father by riding around on his bike on the dirt roads of his tiny little town of Beatty in Haryana in India. There are no paved roads. And so he used to ride his bike, and my grandfather would sit in the carriage next to him, and they would ride around and eventually end up at this nearby pond. They would get off the bike, pick fruit from the nearby trees, and they would share some time together. So on this one particular day, my father has just read Gandhi's autobiography. And in Gandhi's autobiography, he shares this really embarrassing, shameful moment. And my father says to my grandfather, I don't understand. Why would Gandhi share this really embarrassing moment for the entire world to read about forever? It's been documented. He can't even take it back. And my grandfather turns to my father and says, because that's the point, son. When you go through life's hard lessons and you finally become aware of what those are, the power is when you share it. Because then others can learn and also have that awareness. And I believe I'm here living that mission. I did not know when I was going through this journey, this conflict, this massive climax of my life, where I would end up. And here I am now, 8 years after I got out of prison. I get to be in service of others, helping them be aware of everything that's going on in our lives. There's power in that. I have learned from my failure. I have learned new skills. And in the hero's journey, you as a meeting professional have learned new skills. Whether you even can recognize it or not, the power is on this road back is having that awareness to deconstruct what you learned, how you can apply those lessons, who are the new relationships, right? Because really it's a choice. Am I right? It's a choice. You can stay down on your knees and collapse, or you can rise up off your knees and recognize that that one conflict, that one adversarial exchange, that one crisis is just a moment. And here you are on the road back, having learned something from it, and you can move on. Right? I had to dig deep, find the courage to be vulnerable. And yes, Brene Brown is my hero. And here I am now. I share my story so that others can help learn from my story. I've created the 6 truths of awareness, and I call it the power of awareness through Dharma leadership. I had to let go of this idea that my self-worth was rooted in my achievements. My whole life, I thought it was all about success and achievements, and there was only one box I could be in. And on the road back, I learned, just like you, the meeting professional hero, has learned, the profound impact of when we finally get that awareness, that there's power in what we've learned. On December 27th, 2015, my kids had just left. They were visiting me in prison. I remember my daughter, who was 9, wrapped her arms around me and pleaded, Mommy, please don't go. As the guard's clock hit 3, I had to leave for county jail the next day. You see, when you're in the federal system, if you get punished, maybe because you got into a fight or they found contraband in your locker, you get sent to county jail as a punishment. So in the 5 months I had spent in the federal camp, I heard lots of stories about county jail, and they were not good, right? There's the guards are full of power. They wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning to feed you. They make you clean. They lock you down, right? There's no access to really anything. No one can come visit you. So I am now being told 2 days after Christmas in 2015 that I'm being sent to county jail, but I am voluntarily going. So now you might say, why? Well, my attorney says if you go to county, you're being asked, I was being asked to testify in another case. And if I testify in another case, the chances are I might come home early. Skip house arrest, skip halfway house. Obviously really good for me and a blessing. So I'm now being transported. I go down to receiving and discharge, and yep, I went through it all again. They stripped me, they strip searched me, They put on paper clothing. They put handcuffs and shackles with the waist chain again. I hobble onto the van and they transport us to county jail. There were about 7 of us that day. And the entire time I'm headed to county jail, I am freaking out, scared again. Like I had already figured it out where I was in the federal system. Now I got to redo it all. And in my mind, I had a very particular idea of the women that were going to be in this county jail, which I believed were very different from me because I already had a story in my head. So I get to the county jail, and I remember the first thing I say to the woman in my cube, there were 2 bunk beds, is, where are the Bibles? Because I had spent all this time reading in federal, and now I was told that there's no books in county jail, so there are only Bibles. So when I get there, I thought that was all I could read. And what else am I going to do all day long? So the girl takes me, when we go off to this corner and we open this cabinet, and fortunate for me, there were other books. Sitting on top of the stack is a book by Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth. I don't know if any of you have read it, but in A New Earth, it is life-changing. He talks about releasing ego. So here I am sitting in a county jail, recognizing that I have a lot of ego, because what was going on in my head was, oh, I'm so thankful that nobody can see me here. Nobody can see what I'm wearing, what I look like, who I'm with, and oh, that I'm in county jail. So I'm reading this book and I'm spending time with these women in my cube. Above me was a prostitute heroin dealer. Next to me was a homeless person who had been selling drugs. And above her, a 24-year-old meth dealer, also selling drugs. Right? It doesn't even occur to me that in my former life, I would have passed judgment on these women. Right? I would have thought I was better than them because I've achieved. I was a lawyer. I had my own law firm. So one particular night, we go off to the side where they used to have a TV like stuck to the wall and chairs stuck to the ground. And we're sitting watching TV and the movie Burlesque comes on. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a lot of singing and dancing, and we're in county jail, but we're trying to enjoy ourselves and spend some time together and have some joy and have fun. So we're singing and dancing. There's a lot of it in the movie. We go back to our cube and one of the women says, hey, have you ever taught Bollywood dancing? Do you know how to Bollywood dance? I say, it's kind of a trick question because I'm Indian and we all love to dance. So there I am in county jail teaching these women how to dance Bollywood. One of them started singing a very popular song, like humming it. And I realized that like in my former life, yeah, I would have passed judgment on them, but I had spent 23 days cooking with them, eating with them, praying with them, crying with them, getting them to work out with me. And I realized in that moment that we are all drops from the same ocean. This awareness comes over me that how dare I pass judgment on these women who, but for the grace of the universe, there go I. And that awareness has taught me so much. That power has brought me to a new level of awareness that I now get to gratefully share with others, right? The power of awareness, when you're going through the journey, the hero's journey, the road back is recognizing who we were and who we are today. So recognize that power. Join me in the road back. Thank you so much. We are now near the end of our journey, and Molemwa is going to awaken you, the hero, with new insights.